Hello, Patriots. Here's a great article I thought everyone would enjoy. So, here is the site. Of the article. And let me read it here a little bit here. If I can read it with my eyes. Here, hang on a minute here. Okay. Nuremberg 2 in 2022. Hang on. See, it's all over the place. I'm not telling you. You can go look. Okay. It is more than evident that a significant part of humanity is stampeding to take experimental However, the experimental violate all 10 of the Nuremberg codes, which carry the death penalty for those who seek to break these international laws. Now, more than ever, we need new trials. Not after the fact, as was the situation after World War II, but while the crimes against humanity are in progress. Instead of these Nazis above the tables would be full of executives from and Dr. Fauci and the infamous Bill Gates and many others, even the politicians who pretended to play doctor and healthcare official, promoting life-threatening and depressing masks, lockdowns, and death should be held accountable. Dr. David Martin clearly shows that all of them are guilty of breaking American laws. Front and center should be multiple members of the FDA and the CDC, who are not trustful governmental agencies, but richly paid whores for the companies. American Heart Association Journal publishes data that UK medical doctor claims are proof that are murder. We can conclude that the mRNA dramatically increases inflammation on the endothelium and T-cell infiltration of cardiac muscle and may account for the observations of increased thrombosis, cardiomyopathy, and other vascular events following the Nazi doctors were charged with conducting experiments on prisoners without consent, most at concentration camps. The aftermath of the trials led to creation of the Nuremberg Code, which the FDA and CDC do not follow. The Dr. Rath Health Foundation tells us that after 6 decades of silence, the historical records of the key war crimes tribunal and determined the responsibility for World War II were finally made available. Currently, history books teach that World War II was launched by a lunatic dictator Hitler and his ruthless Nazi henchmen. However, tens of thousands of historical documents from the Nuremberg trial, newly released online, unequivocally document that World War II, a war that cost the lives of more than 60 million people, were planned and financed by the world's largest pharmaceutical cartel at that time. Germany's LG Farben consisted of Bayer, BASF, Hoechst, and others. The driving force behind World War II was IG Farben's ambition to control the global oil and drug markets and eliminate by force any competition. The IG Farben companies financed the rise of power of the Nazi Party and transformed German democracy into a dictatorship. The pharmaceutical industry does not act in the tradition of the protector of humanity, but in the tradition of IG Farben, a group of organized criminals willing to sacrifice countless human lives to maintain their profits, writes Dr. Matthias Rath. Listen to him, pleading in 2012 with his fellow Germans to not go down the same road that Germans have traveled twice before. He too claims that the two world wars were driven by the insatiable greed of the pharmaceutical and chemical cartels. The legacy of IG Farben is carried on by Bayer, Monsanto, Pfizer, and other companies. Telford Taylor, U.S. Chief Prosecutor at the Nuremberg War Crimes Tribunal against the executives of Great IG Farben, wrote, "The crimes with which these men are charged were not committed in rage or under the stress of sudden temptation. One does not build a great war machine in a fit of passion, nor an Auschwitz factory during a passing spasm of brutality. Their purpose was to turn the German nation into a military machine so it could impose its dominion on Europe and other nations beyond the seas. They were the warp and woof of the dark mantle of death that settled over Europe." The Nuremberg War Criminal Tribunal convicted 24 IG Farben board members and executives based on mass murder, slavery, and other crimes against humanity. Amazingly, however, by 1951, all of them had already been released and continued to consult with German corporations. The Nuremberg trial dissolved IG Farben into Bayer, Hoechst, and BASF. Moreover, today of each the 3 daughters of IG Farben is 20 times as big as the IG Farben mother was at its height in 1944. The last year of the Second World War. These are people on this planet that take pleasure in hurting other people. They injured others from sheer psychological habit. The general nature of evil is not to have consciousness of the effect our actions have on the feelings and emotional world of others, which is the definition of defining characteristics of both psychopaths and sociopaths. Dr. Russell Blaylock says that it was the Rockefeller Foundation that created orthodox medicine back in 1901. Rockefeller owned what was called the Drug Trust, That's the major drug manufacturing firms all over the world. Merck Pharmaceuticals, literally all of these pharmaceutical companies. And of course, the aim was to remove all nutrition references to nutritional type treatments from the medical schools. They closed down half the medical schools in the United States. There were 165 medical schools at the time. Then he had his anointed medical schools, which he poured his money into, appointed the professors from his stock of professors. And so they created an educational system that taught the things that he wanted to be taught. And therefore, every professor that came out of those programs taught the same thing. According to the American Medical Association, a whopping 96% of the United States doctors as of June have been for him. And now many are dead. Doctors are dying, and doctors are quitting or being fired. Who will run the hospitals? Dr. David Martin has been spending the past year and a half fighting to unravel what he says is the global criminal conspiracy of parties include the American and Chinese governments, the International Monetary Fund, and BlackRock. Martin says these groups are guilty of criminal conspiracy in a terrorist plot against the American people. Contemporary medicine has been on quicksand for over 100 years, and as it sinks to the bottom, it is pulling down with it millions of humans into misery and death. We have known for a decade, thanks to the work of Dr. Gary Null, Dr. Carolyn Dean, and Dr. Barbara Starfield, that properly prescribed pharmaceutical meds are killing over 100,000 Americans each year. James Howard Kunstler writes that modern medicine is a hostage racket. Medicine is now a catastrophe, every bit as pernicious as the illnesses it is supposed to treat, and a grave threat to a nation that we're supposed to care about. If you thought banking in our time was a miserable racket, which it is, of course, and by racket, I mean a criminal enterprise, then so-called healthcare has it beat by a country mile, with an added layer of sadism and cruelty built into its operation. Is it worth then all the above? There's a video on this site too. Dr. Wolfgang Wodarg, former head of health at the Council of Europe, explains that a pandemic used to be associated with widespread severe illnesses and death, but by changing the definition, removing the severity, and high mortality criteria, World Health Organization can now make a pandemic whenever it wants. One of the most respected men in Europe, he maintains that the World Health Organization is an institute of corruption. The scientific data overwhelmingly shows how probably millions have died from the injections, and hundreds of millions are suffering crippling effects that often permanently disable the victims for life. The report provides all the data along with hundreds of references for further investigation. At the above link, one must scroll down to the first video, but be prepared for a shock, as the entire world's elites are exposed for who and what they are, what they own, and what they have planned for most of the rest of us. Naturally, after watching, one is tempted to run and hide, but in the end, courage is encouraged. It will be a miracle if the 99% of us persevere against the elite, the deep state, the 3 or 4 companies that seem to own most of the other mega corporations. Add God into the equation, add truth, reason, insight, and love for each other, and perhaps a much needed miracle will occur. I also recommend a video exposing the lies and stupidity of Gates, Fauci, Biden, the head of the CDC, and Biden, who cannot make up their minds about what is truth or not about 47 million adults in the U.S. remain, according to figures from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. A judge stands up to a hospital set aside and giving a dying man a Chicago area judge saved a grandfather's life with the single question that exposes hospitals blocking doctors from using a safe FDA-approved drug. Why? You want to watch the video on this article, you can go here and check it out. Take care, Patriots. Stay strong. Remember, we're in this together, and we'll keep fighting until we take the deep state all down. All of them, including the child traffickers in the media that are helping them all. Expose, expose, expose. That's our job now, not the media. Do a good job. I think we are. Love yous. Bye.